In this video, I will give you a basic overview of the Dashboard Lite software located on your Vector Probe 3 gauge. Under the Start menu, if you click on Computer, and under Removable Devices, the KC3. KC3.exe is the software. So if we open that, on the left-hand side, we have the gauge information, which offers you the serial number, calibration date, the max pressure and temperature that tool was calibrated to, sample information. If we click on Get Sample, the software will go out, pull a live sample from that gauge, and display it right here. Battery and memory indicator. This shows how much battery and memory is left on the actual tool, but right below battery and the memory, it gives you a days, and basically this will give you an option of how many days that battery will last for and how many days the memory will last for at the current sample rate. And because I was doing a demo, this was set for 1 second. So if I change this to 10 seconds, now the battery in days, this tool would go for 1,281 days, and the memory would last for 475.9 days. I will go through more of this in the video explaining how to actually program your gauges. Below that, we have the select job. This is your current and previous jobs that are currently still on that actual gauge. This big white space is where it actually plots your data. Below that is your actual real-time data. On the far right, you have your sample rates, so your fixed or variable rates, your pressure trigger, your date trigger below that, your pressure units below that, so all the standard pressure units are listed there, whether in absolute or gauge. So use the settings that your reporting company or your reporting people use. Temperature units. The set configuration button basically just sends those configurations to the actual tool, so the actual gauge knows what samples and what units to actually use. Below that, we have the play button is the green triangle is the actual logging button. If I click on that, it'll be logging. If I click the red square, it'll stop it logging. Below that is a smart drop box, which basically is, you can just, if you had an update, you can just drag it and then drop it into that smart drop, and it will update the firmware of the tool or the actual software. I will cover more in depth on all of these features in upcoming videos. In this video, I'm going to show you how to download and export the data off of your Vector Probe 3 gauge. First, we'll start off by mentioning that because we utilize a flash-based memory on this 3rd generation tool, it does operate differently than our 2nd generation and our 1st generation tools. I'll start off by connecting the tool to the computer via the communication module. What you'll notice is the autoplay window pops up. Here we'll click the open folder to view files. Now, if you look, you will see 2 files with a .kc3 file extension. These are your raw files created when you put the tool into logging mode. The kc3.exe is the software. So if we open the software, we'll notice on the bottom left hand side we have the 2 job files. If we double click, it will plot the data. If we right mouse click, it'll give us options. So view file, export file, delete file, or delete them all. Also, if you right mouse click on the right or left hand side of the graph in the white space, you'll get the option to clear plot, export plot data, or print plot. We'll cover those in later videos, but for now we're just going to focus on the export plot data. Here you'll have, in your column order, you can use the drop down menus and specify which order you want it done. In your column separation, you have tab, space, or comma. In this demonstration we'll use comma. Your elapsed time, you have seconds and hours. In this we'll use hours. Here you basically can enter all of your well information. I do recommend that you do this because it is useful in later videos. I will, for this demonstration, we'll just use test and click export. Once it's done, it will show us the actual CSV file created. If we close the software and we go to our C drive and then KC3 data folder, you'll notice here that the two raw files are there and the CSV file that I just created is also there. So there's the data. What I want to mention is that the raw files are in this folder. The software actually automatically creates a backup of those two of the actual raw file as soon as you plot it to the data, in case later by accident you delete the actual data off of those gauges, that you do have a backup in your C local folder, KC3 data. In this video, I'm going to show you how to program a fixed rate, variable rate, and also how to delete the previous data off of the Vector Probe 3 gauges. First, we'll start off by connecting the gauge to the COM box and to the computer. We'll open folder to view files. We'll open the Dashboard Lite software, which is the kc3.exe. On the right hand side of the screen, you'll notice two options for fixed and variable rate. For a fixed rate, just select the scroll down or the pop down menu. Will give you options, preset options. If the preset option that you're looking for isn't there, you can just type it in. For this example, we'll use 10 seconds. You'll want to go down to the bottom here where it says set configuration. Click on set configuration, and it'll ask you if you would like to begin logging. You can click yes if you're going to run the gauges, or click no. For this example, we're going to click no. For a variable rate, we'll click variable rate just underneath it and make sure it's highlighted. And in the box just below that, I'm going to right mouse click. I'm going to add below, and I'm going to set a 1 second sample for the duration of 24 hours, which will show up here. I'm then going to add another, so add below, which I'm going to put a 10 second for 48 hours. And if I wanted to keep adding, I can keep adding. If I wanted to move it, I can add above or below. I can edit it, and I can remove them from here. I can remove them all or just remove the last one I did. One thing I'd like to point out is that the number above here, right beside the fixed rate, is your actual overrun number. So in this example, I would have 1 second for 24 hours, then I'd have 10 seconds for 48 hours, and my overrun I'd set, say, for 30 seconds, and hit set configuration. And same thing, it'll ask me if I want to start logging. I'm going to say no. One thing I'd like to point out here, we do have a safety feature in these actual gauges as a pressure trigger. Here you can set the pressure trigger. The default is 206 kPa. You can change this to whatever you would like it to be. Obviously nothing lower than 200 kPa so that the gauges just don't trigger on the shelf. Once that gauge sees that pressure for more than 10 minutes, it'll automatically click that gauge into logging mode. Just below that is the date trigger. If you want to run these gauges, say if you gave these gauges to somebody that's going to run them and the job wasn't for a week, you could set these gauges to kick on the day of or the day before just by clicking this and setting the appropriate settings below. Pressure units, I covered these briefly in a previous video, but all the major standard units are there, whether you're looking for absolute or gauge pressure. Temperature unit, same. For this example, we're going to use kPa and Celsius. So once I have that all set, if you come over to the left hand side of the screen, you'll notice your battery and your memory meters. On the battery, right underneath where it says days, you'll notice that the battery will last for 2,407 days before the battery would die. And right under that, the memory, you'd notice the memory would run for 1,394 days before the memory would become full. So with this, we'll set configuration, which will send that program to the tool. We won't start it logging. One thing I'd also like to point out on the far bottom left-hand side of the screen, under Select Job, any previous job that you have on the tool will show up there. So if I wanted to delete all of the information that was previously on this tool, I have couple options. I can either right mouse click and delete the one file, or I can delete all of them that are on here. So I click yes. All the jobs will be deleted. Another option would be if I actually went to my start menu, control panel, and to the removable KZ3 device, storage device, you would notice the actual raw files listed within here. You could just select them and delete them.